All right, here we need to figure out between Max and Sarah who is going to enter the water first, since they dive at the same time. So we see Max's height as a function of time is illustrated here in this graph. And Sarah's height as a function of time is in this function, which should actually be g of x. This is f of x, this is g of x. So we're going to look. All right, who enters the water first means here's the height. They enter the water at a height of 0. So if we look here at Max's graph, he enters in after 2 seconds. Okay, that's a function of time. So now we need to figure out Sarah's height. And unfortunately, the only way to do that, since we have a function in standard form, is to use the quadratic formula, which is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. So here we have a, b, and c. So let's plug it in. We have negative b, so that's negative 1.1, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 1.1 squared, minus 4 times a, which is negative 16, times c, which is 46.3, all over 2 times negative 16, since that's what a is. All right, so let's do some work, and let's simplify the inside down. Oops. Apologize, make that a little bit bigger. Let's pull up our calculator again. All right, so we need to figure out what 1.1 squared is. So that's 1.1, and we square it. So that's 1.21. Okay, so we have 1.21. And now let's figure out what negative 4 times, oops, clear that out, negative 4 times 4 negative times, let's see, 16 negative times 46.3. And we get, did that wrong, 4 negative times 16 negative times 46.3. All right, we get that amount. So we get 2,000, and that's positive 2,963, right? 0.2. So we're going to add those two together. So then I'm going to add 1.21, and I get that. So now I have the square root of 2,964.41 plus or minus negative 1.1 all over negative 32. So now let's figure out what that square root is. So we're going to hit square root now. And let's see, square root, and we get 54.4. All right, so we get negative 1.1 plus or minus 54.4. Let's double check that, make sure that. Yep, all over negative 32. So I'm actually just going to do the first part, negative 1 plus 54.4, because if I do a negative and a negative, actually we're going to change this to a positive and that to a positive. Okay, it doesn't really matter because of this plus or minus in between. Okay, the negative is going to cancel that negative out regardless. All right, so now I have 1.1 plus 54.4 over 32. Okay, so 1.1 plus 54.4, and then we're going to divide it by 32 and 1.7 seconds. So we get 1.7 seconds. So Sarah gets into the water in 1.7 seconds, while Max gets in the water in 2 seconds. So Sarah is faster into the water.